Hello Internet, and welcome to the Collective Arcana. We're a channel all about tabletop gaming, and today we're going to continue our series on the core classes from Pathfinder 2nd edition with the Champion. Sorry about the delay between videos. Real life sort of gets in the way sometimes, and especially lately we've just been very excited diving into the Advanced Player's Guide. We're going to do some videos on that soon. We're not sure if we want to do those new classes in order with these classes or wait till it's all done and go back and touch on them. If you have a preference, definitely down in the comments, let us know, if you want us to add them in as part of this series or make them their own separate series once we finish. The Champion is sort of a unique situation for us here on the channel because we've done a couple of videos already on the Champion. It just happens to be one of my favorite classes, specifically the Paladin, the old version of it. And I had some pretty reactionary thoughts about it when we first got our hands on the 2nd edition core rulebook. Pretty misguided opinions in the earliest video, so if you want to watch that and laugh at how wrong I was, I'm sure the link's around here somewhere. We also did another video on it where I sort of laid out some build path options for, if you wanted to play a more offensive feeling champion versus the overall fairly defensive focus that the class has. Just sort of pointing out how there's actually a lot of pretty gnarly tools if all you want to be doing is instilling the fear of God in your enemies. So, a lot of those qualms that I had were just a lack of system understanding and mastery coming into 2nd edition. I was bringing a lot of baggage from older editions into the game, and Pathfinder 2e really is a whole different creature than you're expecting, and abilities that you might look at when you're first getting into it and say, why would I ever choose this option? This is, looks pretty weak, are actually a lot stronger than you think they may be. Just because of how different the system is. If you're thinking in terms of an older edition, you're not going to have a good grasp on what works and what doesn't work, and that was my problem. So again, you can definitely check those videos out. I will not swear to those, to that path or that champion build those champion build options that I talked about. I will not swear to the accuracy. That was very early on. But definitely worth checking out. I definitely could have gotten some feat interactions wrong though, so again, go tell me how dumb I am in that video. It's great, it's fine. On to this video. The reason we're going to go ahead and do this video in addition is because here, like the other videos, we just want to go over what you're getting for that class, what you're buying into with it, so you have an idea of, is this something that appeals to me? What kind of abilities does it get? That sort of thing. So very different video than the other two. So the Champion begins with 10 hit points per level. Again, as with all classes in Pathfinder 2nd edition, you're not rolling your hit die every level. You're just getting a flat number. And at 10 hit die, or at 10 HP per level, the Champion is among the most durable classes in the game. Right up there with Fighter and Ranger, and just below Barbarian. So, really filling that tank role that it's designed to do. For Perception, our champions, begin trained and will go up to Expert at level 11, and that's where they cap out. Which isn't a huge deal. They're not designed to be the first responders in the party, but definitely something to keep in mind. But there's a lot of ways to improve that. At least in terms of initiative and, skill checks and things. For saves, the Champion will begin Expert in Fortitude and will progress to Master at level 9. They begin Trained in Reflex and will go to Expert also at level 9. And begin Expert in Will and will go to Master at level 11. Definitely we're starting to see the theme already, sort of a, not necessarily the fastest character on the field, but, tough and resilient. The boosted ability for the class, I normally say this a little bit earlier, boosted ability for the class is a choice between either strength or dexterity. Now, right now, there are not a whole lot of dexterous champion options available within the class, but with the way Pathfinder 2nd Edition's multi-classing and archetype system works, you can definitely tack on a duelist or rogue style archetype on there, or even a ranger or archer, to take advantage of a high dexterity character. So it's definitely a build that works. You just may have to go outside of your class to make the most out of a dexterity build for champion. But it's nice to have the option baked into the class. For attacks, the champion begins trained in simple, martial, and unarmed attacks. And that will go up to expert at 5th level and master at 13th. Where they cap. They do get weapon specialization at level 7 and greater specialization at level 15. So definitely able to dish out damage as well as take it. As far as defenses go, they begin trained in light, medium, heavy, and unarmored, which is a bit interesting for a few reasons. And that will go up to expert at level 7, master at 13, and all the way to legendary at level 17. So, champions join monks as being the only 2 legendary defenses for AC. Champions throughout most of the levels are probably going to have the higher AC of the 2 because they get heavy armor and are more likely to be using shields. So, definitely a tanky class as is intended. While champions do not get traditional spell casting, they do take advantage of the new focus point system for Pathfinder 2nd Edition with a series of focus spells. Now, default, they only get 1 to start, but there are class features at higher levels as well as feats that you can take throughout to add to that repertoire. But the default one is based on some of your choices in terms of alignment, which is very important to the champion, and we'll talk about what that is. What we need to know right now is that you begin trained in your spell attacks and DCs, and that goes up to expert at level 9 and master at level 17, and your class DCs will progress along with that as well. So it's nice that they're at the same levels. And it's going to, up to master at level 17. That's about as good as most mixed casters get, if you were like taking a multi-class archetype. So it's definitely very viable. You don't need to feel like you can't use your spells. You won't be as effective as a cleric, but that's not why you picked the class. So for skills, the champion begins trained in religion and 1 additional skill based on your choice of deity. You also gain 2 additional trained skills, plus 1 for each point of intelligence modifier that you have. One thing that Pathfinder 2nd Edition has done a great job of is taking classes that in previous editions would have felt pretty starved for skills, and made it so that even the lowest number of skill points that you get with a class, especially when you factor in the ones you get with your background and potentially from ancestries and things like that, it's really hard to build a character that doesn't have something to do outside of combat, some way to contribute to a social or environmental encounter. So I talked about your alignment being very important. The Advanced Player's Guide, which just came out a couple weeks ago as of this video, is has added evil champions, but in the core rulebook, we only have access to good, so that's what we're going to go with. The tenets of good are basically these sort of codified rules that you want to try to obey. You can never, I'm going to have to read from this, you can never harm an innocent or allow harm to come to one through inaction if you can realistically and reasonably prevent it. It doesn't force you to take action against possible, potential, maybe harm at an indefinite future time, or does it require you to sacrifice your life in order to save that person. That's great. That's going to prevent a lot of the problems with champion as being sort of, people would describe lawful stupid, where players feel like they have to do these great good things because it's what their character would do, even if it might cause a lot of problems. The sort of thing where the DM wants, or the game master wants to introduce a powerful enemy and show them, decimating a town, and the champion says, I know I'm level 1, but I've got to go try to stop it. This gives you a reason, as part of your tenets, to say, somebody should stop it, but I would just get myself killed. Let me, take a step back. That's not going to help anybody if I go down there and get killed. Maybe we can reassess and find a new way to do something about this besides just me charging in and dying. So it's a very nice, subtle change to that sort of paladin or champion mindset. And there's a lot of those throughout the book here that will really help prevent the problematic paladin players of the past from derailing or otherwise getting the party into hot water that they wanted to avoid. In addition, you will have certain anathema based on your deity, as well as, and this is universal, you cannot commit evil acts or cast, such as torture or murder. You cannot cast an evil spell, and that is specifically spells that have an evil trait. It'll usually be in the spell description, typically up at the top. There's not a whole lot of them right now. Things like chilling darkness, circle against fear, or circle against, or circle of protection against good, types of things like that. So, not a huge spell list, and as a champion, you don't default get spells anyway, so that part's probably not going to give you a problem. If you have the Advanced Player's Guide, though, and you're thinking, oh, maybe I can take this really fun evil champion focus spell, probably not. That's gonna be against your anathema. So, your deity will also give you a cause, you'll also choose a deity and a cause. So, the anathema is going to be specific to your deity. Gods and Magic is a great reference tool, but you can also check out the archives, for everything a little more accessible. But I do recommend that Gods and Magic book. We did a video on it. Check it out. It's a really terrific video, really terrific book. Not a video. I hope it's good, but the book is terrific, even for somebody like me who's a home brewer. Even though I'm not going to probably use those deities as is, it's great to get into a mindset of how to create a deity, showing you what is the minimum things you require so that your deity can exist mechanically, as well as some of the things that you're going to want to add so that your deity feels like it's part of the world. It's a really great resource. Your cause, that's specifically a champion mechanic, and we'll get into that in a moment. But keep in mind that your alignment must match your cause exactly, but it doesn't need to match your deity exactly. It just has to be within the range that your deity offers. So some even lawful good deities won't require you to be lawful good. They just, so you can be other types of champion as long as you're within the scale. And the scale varies. Some deities have pretty wide open options. Some just have a couple of alignments available. So your mileage will vary depending on your deity. So what are the causes? The causes are based on your alignment. Lawful good, that is the paladin. It's a much more sort of retribution type of a character. It's a little more martial focused, a little more not quite smitey. Smite doesn't exist as you may be thinking of it from other editions. But their reaction, every cause gets a specific reaction that they can use that's specific to them. The Paladin reaction is one where it functionally is like an attack of opportunity that is triggered on an enemy who attacks an ally near you. So it's great because it allows you to reduce the damage your ally takes, and if the enemy is within the reach of your weapon, and there's a feat to take that up to 15 feet, then you can also attack the creature that initiated it. This is great combined with your high AC and HP, because it means that some intelligent monsters may, rather than deal reduced damage and take an attack from you for hitting your adjacent ally, they may instead attack you with your higher AC and HP, meaning that you're going to be able to take a lot less damage versus dealing less damage to that person and getting smacked in the face. So it really creates this sort of catch-22 situation for a lot of monsters, and that's how most of these reactions work. The Redeemer is the neutral good champion, and that's neutral good is also known as pure good. It's very much a forgiveness sort of theme to the character, giving enemies a chance to reflect on their actions and maybe make better ones. Glimpse of Redemption is the reaction you get there, and basically whenever you use that reaction, triggered again by an enemy within 15 feet of you, attacking an ally, that's also within 15 feet of you, or an enemy attacking an ally that's within 15 feet of you triggers this reaction. That triggers most of the reactions. And that's going to make that, when you use your reaction, it makes that creature decide, does it want to go ahead and deal that damage, still reduced as all of them are by 2 plus your level reduction to the damage, and then take an enfeebled 2 condition, which is brutal for especially melee attackers. Or it can instead, when you use that reaction, it can instead reflect and decide, I don't want to attack right now. It still eats the action, it loses the action, but your ally takes no damage, and the creature has avoided being enfeebled. So it's a real catch-22 decision for that enemy. Finally, the Liberator. It is the chaotic good champion cause, and it's very much about, let people do what they want to do as long as nobody's hurting anybody. Why are we getting in the way? It's specifically, very much against indentured servitude, slavery, things like that, as well as any sort of social norms that might repress people's freedoms. It's a really nice sort of fun concept. Its reaction is Liberating Step. If an ally and an enemy are within 15 feet of you and that enemy goes to grab, grapple, or damage your ally, then you can use this reaction. It's going to reduce the damage by 2 plus your level, just like all 3 of the other reactions do. It's also going to give them a chance to attempt a new save against a grab, restraining, immobilizing, or paralyzing effect that the creature put on them. Or they can attempt to escape from one of those effects as a free action. If they can move, the ally can step as a free action, even if they didn't need to escape. That's definitely one of the longer ones, a lot more complicated in terms of getting it triggered. It's, in some ways, it's going to apply more often because you can use it in more situations. But it's also, in my opinion, and definitely down in the comments, let me know if I'm wrong, the more niche of the 3. Your allies may not always need to escape or even take that step. So the situations where you're really getting everything out of that reaction are slim. Though in those situations when you are getting everything out of that reaction, it's a lifesaver. So the focus spell that you get as part of your class, as part of being a good champion, is Lay on Hands, and that will heal 6 per spell level. Like all focus spells, the spell level is half your level rounded up. So it will also boost the AC of an ally that you deliver it to, and that can be used on adjacent allies. You can also use that, it's dealing positive damage. You can also use it against things that are vulnerable to positive damage to deal damage, and then it's going to deal 1d6 per spell level and give an AC penalty to that creature. So that's really sort of the closest you can get to a smitey feel by default. We'll talk about some of the other ways you can add on to that or stack it up. But one thing I kind of would have liked if you could deliver that through your weapon instead of it always being a spell where you've got to physically touch, especially when you're using it, specifically when you're using it on an enemy. But sort of like the channel smite feature that clerics get, and we'll talk about that in the next video. But it's overall, it's very thematic. It's the Lay on Hands. That's standard for champions and paladins. And it's a really great focus spell to have. It allows a champion to be out of combat, one of the best healers in the game. Not always the best thing to do in combat, but having a focus spell that does serious healing and recharges every 10 minutes is a great way to quickly make sure that your party is ready for the next fight. At first level, you also get 1 class feat that you can choose, and of course, as the game continues to go, there will be a lot more first level class feats that you can choose from. One of them that I might recommend for a lot of people, especially if you're human and get a bonus one, it's always good to get that. You can get access to domain spells as if you were a cleric. It's just a nice extra focus spell. It's really pretty fun and pretty potent, especially if you're building towards a theme. Just to give yourself another focus point that you can use even for Lay on Hands, but also a new ability if you want to feel just a little bit more magical with your champion. And you also get the shield block feat, which includes, the reaction. So it's a very reactionary class with your champion's reaction and then your shield block. So if they're hitting your friends, you can use your champion's reaction. If they're hitting you, you can use shield block. Very defensive build. So that's what you get at level 1. As you progress at level 3, you'll get a choice of divine ally. For blade, which is not necessarily a blade, it can be any sort of weapon, where you're basically getting access to a limited number of thematic rune effects that you can apply to your weapon each day. So you can be set up for whatever you know that you're going to be fighting that day. It's pretty nice. It's definitely going to save you some money and give you some real versatility, especially if you're fighting something and you know that you're able to get an effect on there that's going to hit a weakness that can be devastating to an enemy. The shield ally is going to increase the durability of your shield, and basically just allow you to continue to block longer than any other class that's using a shield. And then finally, you can get a steed ally. It does not have to be a mount, but it typically is a mount, going back to, being able to get the divine horse in previous editions. But, if you want a cool eagle or, an alligator or, whatever, just because you can't ride it, you still get a divine companion. And so that's depending on your build, that can be really interesting and a great way to get a companion without multi-classing if that's part of your character concept. What's great about these is, of course, there are feats that you can soup these up. You can get access to new types of runes. You can get some modifications to how your shield block works. And you can, of course, enhance that companion in ways that even a ranger or a druid can't. Specifically giving them the ability to speak and making them smarter than the average horse. So it's that's really a big piece of the class and a lot of fun. At level 9, you get Divine Smite. This is going to look a little different. This isn't an action you can take. It's added onto your reaction, where you get to add persistent good damage equal to your charisma modifier. If that doesn't sound like a lot, try to understand that persistent damage is a big deal in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, especially if you're fighting something that is weak to it. So if, for example, you're fighting something that has a weakness 5 to good damage, not only are you dealing, your 3 or 4 charisma, whatever it may be, as damage to it each round, in addition to whatever else happened to it that round, but it's also triggering that weakness, which means that it could be taking, if it's got a 5 or 10, some things have 15 weakness. So that could be a lot of damage that's just trickling down on this creature that it doesn't have a lot of ways to stop. It's sort of got to get lucky with dice, and you can pretty quickly deal, dozens or even, up to 100 damage, depending on how the rolls are going, especially if you're continuing to apply that effect. It doesn't stack, but keeping it going is always a good thing. And it can really eat through an enemy. So don't just look at that and go, oh, great, I get to add 3 damage per round. No, it really, really can add up. At 11th level, you get to Exalt, and that allows you to share your some effects of your champion's reaction with your allies. So the Paladin allies get to use reactions to strike a triggering enemy at a penalty, as long as they're within range to do so. So reaction, which would normally protect the ally and make a strike, but now everybody who's in range gets to do the same thing. I don't need to tell you how brutal it is. The Redeemer, you can reduce the damage resistance, you can reduce the damage resistance by 2, but you apply it to all allies. This is great if there's an area effect type thing happening. So that's very strong. And then the Liberator, all your allies can step. Again, as with the other Liberator ability, this is more niche type thing, but if you just need a lot of mobility and quickly, it can get you out of harm's way. It can get you moving towards an enemy that you're trying to catch up with. There are uses for it, just maybe not as obvious and numerous as the other reactions. Finally, at level 19, you get Hero's Defiance. And Hero's Defiance is a focus spell that you can use to, as a reaction, heal yourself for 20d4 plus 10d4 plus 20 HP. It's going to average to about 50, but it's a nice way to, if you were about to be killed in combat or, drop to 0 to stay up. And unlike an orc's, reaction to keep fighting, you actually have enough HP that you might, live to see your next ally's turn or even your turn to further top that off. So as a survival tool on a class that's already very high on survivability, that is a really nice semi-capstone ability. So let's talk about the feats that you get. They vary wildly. Like I said earlier, a lot of them are enhancing your favored or your divine ally. Many of them are enhancing and modifying how your reaction works, up to including getting extra reactions per round, which is very strong. You can pick up Attack of Opportunity, always a great feat, especially when you combine that with your champion's reaction and Attack of Opportunity, and the fact that you can get a feat that will give you a free additional reaction only to use your champion's reaction and a free additional reaction only to use your shield block reaction. It means that potentially you could have up to 3 reactions per round on this class, which is, to my knowledge, the most anything gets. And that would include monsters that I've seen in the rulebook. So that's a whole lot of things that you can do not on your turn to seriously contribute to combat. So if that's the build you want to go with, that's very, very good and very problematic as a DM. There are oaths, which are these sort of enhancements to how your smite works, and also can modify your restrictions on how you must behave, so that you don't have to necessarily follow the rule of law if it's unjust, especially if it's a country or an area that's ruled by an undead, a dragon, a demon, or with the APG, an aberration. There's an ability where you can use your Lay on Hands, to deal damage to a creature that is not susceptible to positive damage, and that's pretty cool. There's also some classic abilities. There's one to increase a saving throw as a reaction. There's one to be able to sense evil. That's certainly a little limited, but it's not as strong as it may have been in previous editions. But it is definitely something you may consider. There are options to boost the effects of your Lay on Hands, not typically healing more, but adding the removal of harmful effects, so that when you use your Lay on Hands, you can remove paralysis, deafness, things like that. There are some auras that you can pick up to give all allies within a certain radius certain bonuses against different effects. And then there is an ability, I think it's a 20th level feat, where you can take on a celestial form and just be an angel come down from heaven to do God's will. So, overall, this is a pretty powerful class, especially, as far as defensive capabilities go, not just for you, but for an entire party. Between your reactions, preventing damage, your focus spells, healing damage, and the numerous ways that you can help people with saving throws and removing conditions, a champion is very much a presence that is felt in a party. It's a great martial support class. What it lacks in, say, 5th edition's ability to deal outrageous amounts of damage, it makes up for in being able to survive just outrageous situations. And not just yourself, but keeping your party up during those situations. Lay on Hands, as I said before, is a great tool to make sure that your party is always healed between encounters and ready to go. And overall, this is a very different idea for the class than other editions of the game. That's why they changed the name from Paladin to Champion, because they knew that they were doing some big fundamental changes. For those of you that are really sad to lose that spellcasting Divine Marshal, you may find what you're looking for in the War Priest, which we'll talk about in the Cleric video. Cleric is really, in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, it's really 2 classes in one. It's the War Priest, which is a martial type character, and the Cloistered Cleric, which is very much like a white mage, just a sort of a healer, although it doesn't have to heal, of course. So if that's what you're looking for, check out that video when we post it. Hopefully not in a month like this video. Hopefully sooner than that. We'll see there. Again, my overall view on this class is it's very strong. It's great for the party on the whole. What it lost between editions in its ability to end encounters with the worst of the worst type of creatures just instantly almost. It gained in a lot of usefulness and utility in all situations. Instead of being this class that is game-breaking almost against the most thematic bad guys in the game, it's now this class that is good always, extra good in those situations, and is much more well-rounded. And from just a game perspective, it's easier to have a champion in the party and still threaten the party with, an undead, a demon, a dragon, things like that, that before in other editions of the game were almost trivialized by a well-built paladin. Is that good or bad? I'm sure for some players, even me included, you're going to miss that. But in terms of overall health of a game and a party and a storyline, it helps. It really helps to make sure that you're not just not taking those kind of threats seriously because you can rely on that champion to almost kill things in a round. That is the champion. Hopefully, you guys liked the video. If you have any questions about the class, anything I didn't cover, as always, down in the comments. We're definitely going to do some advanced player's guide videos and talk about all the new specific toys to that for each class, as well as all the new ancestries and heritages. The versatile heritages are just so cool. But we're going to go into all that. But if you have any specific questions, again, down in the comments, let us know. Happy to answer them. Next video will be the cleric. I do have some thinking to do about how I want to handle how different the cloistered cleric and the war priest are. So I'm not sure if we'll go with like a similar format and just go through all the possible different advancements of your proficiencies, or if we'll kind of treat them as two classes. I don't really know. But we'll see how it goes. Thank you so much for listening to my rambling, and welcome to the collective, and we'll see you next time. Bye.